NARASIMHAN. Tragedy struck Sydney's iconic Bondi Beach on Sunday when a Hanukkah celebration turned into a scene of horror and violence. Two gunmen opened fire on the crowd, killing 16 people and injuring more than 40 others, including at least two police officers who were responding to the attack. Among the dead were victims ranging in the age from a 10-year-old girl to older adults, including a British-born rabbi and other community figures. One of the suspected attackers was killed by the cops at the scene, while the second suspect was critically wounded and taken into custody. Authorities quickly declared the massacre a terrorist attack, saying the shooters deliberately targeted the Jewish community during a religious celebration, an act widely described as anti-Semitic terrorism. Cops later found suspected improvised explosive devices in a vehicle linked to the attackers, which fortunately did not detonate. Australia Prime Minister Anthony Albanese condemned the attack in the strongest terms, calling it a deliberate act of hate and terror aimed at Jewish Australians. He vowed that Australia would not tolerate violence or hatred and will tackle the rising threat of anti-Semitism and domestic terror. Albanese also called for national unity in support of the Jewish community and pledged to work to eradicate the hate that fueled the attack. World leaders offered condolences and solidarity with Australia and the victims. US President Donald Trump condemned the attack as a terrible anti-Semitic act and pledged cooperation in the ongoing investigations with the US agencies offering assistance. Prime Minister Narendra Modi also expressed his support for Australia and sympathy for the families affected, denouncing the attack as a ghastly act of terror and reaffirming Bharat's zero tolerance for terrorism in all forms. However, Israel Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu sharply criticized Anthony Albanese, accusing him of failing to confront anti-Semitism in Australia and asserting in a letter that Canberra's policies, including its recent recognition of a Palestinian state, had poured fuel on the anti-Semitic fire and contributed to a climate that enabled such violence. The Bondi Beach massacre, the deadliest mass shooting in Australia since the 1996 Port Arthur massacre and the worst terror incident in the nation's history, has prompted urgent discussions about the vulnerability of the Jewish community. It has become a part of a pattern of attacks on the Jewish community in the West, where the Hamas mindset persists. Now, earlier in the day, here on the right stand, we also spoke with Caroline Glick, who's the International Affairs Advisor to the Prime Minister of Israel. This is what she had to say. Joining us now is Caroline Glick, International Affairs Advisor to the Prime Minister of Israel. Caroline, namaste. Thank you for speaking with us here at CNN News 18. If you can hear me, may I ask and understand, why was Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu so critical of the Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese?
Well, namaste to you and your viewers as well. The reason that the Prime Minister is so critical of the Australian Prime Minister Albanese is because Prime Minister Albanese in Australia has not only stood by, he's enabled violent assaults against Jews for the past 2 years since October 7th. You know, on October 9th, you had a crowd of people standing by the Sydney Opera Building screaming "Jews to the gas," 2 days after the worst massacre of Jews since the Holocaust. And the crowd wasn't dispersed by Australian authorities. The crowd openly calling for the genocide of Jews in Australia and everywhere else and threatening and taunting Australian Jews. Instead, the Australian authorities told the Jews to stay home, to disperse, to walk away, and allowed this mob to seed and to have its message of genocide be legitimized in Australia. And since then, we have seen just attack after attack after attack, and each time, they're warned, we tell them, we warn them, and they don't do anything. Instead, the Australian government responded to October 7th, you know how? By giving $25 million to Gaza, by giving $25 million to Hamas. This is what the Albanese government has been doing since the very beginning of the war, and accusing us of genocide even before we even began operating on the ground practically. So, we're talking about an administration in Canberra that has been enabling, facilitating the terrorization of Jews in Australia at the same time that it's condemning Israel as some sort of an outlaw nation for actually standing up to the terrorism that, as we warned would happen, caused the massacre yesterday on Bondi Beach in Sydney. That's why he's critical, because Australian Prime Minister Albanese was warned repeatedly. We warned him. The Jews of Australia warned him, and he didn't listen. Instead, he continued to empower the Palestinians, yes, by recognizing a state of Palestine. You know what? This woman came to Bondi Beach today, in the aftermath of the massacres, when you have the Jewish community milling about mourning what had just befell it, and she came surrounded by police guards, armed in a keffiyeh and Free Palestine garb, in order to taunt the Jews. And she was protected. She was protected. She came in there with full police protection. So it wasn't her message. It was a message of the Sydney police authorities that said Jews aren't even allowed to mourn in quiet and tranquility. We're not going to allow that to happen. We're going to allow this woman to come in and poke her finger in their eyes just hours after, before they've even started burying the dead. And when you still have dozens of people fighting for their lives in area hospitals. So yes, there's a reason to accuse Albanese of being responsible for this. He's presided over all of this.
A lot of governments say that this is their way of protecting free speech. Your thoughts on that, Caroline?
You know, there's a difference between freedom of speech and freedom to incite violence and murder, and freedom to intimidate and assault innocent people who are worshiping. Is it freedom of speech to ignite a synagogue while you have Jews celebrating the Jewish Sabbath and eating a Sabbath dinner at a synagogue in Melbourne? Is it freedom of speech to taunt Jews everywhere they go outside of their schools, to vandalize Jewish property? Is that freedom of speech, calling for death to the Jews in Australia? Because if it is, then I don't know what the value of freedom of speech is, because all this does is terrorize an entire population and empower people who then go out and massacre Jews on a beach in Sydney, celebrating their religious festival.
How would you read this attempt to link it with what Israel's action is with respect to Gaza?
You know, in a way, it's true, because the hatred is a unified hatred. It's a hatred of Jews, and it's a hatred of the Jewish state. And what they try to do is vilify the Jewish state in order to enable the murder of Jews outside of Israel in places as far-flung as Sydney, Australia. You know, and so if you're saying that Israel has no right to exist, then, you know, what you're basically saying is that, yes, it's okay to stand outside the Sydney Opera House on October 9th and scream death to the Jews, Jews to the gas. That's exactly what's happening. So to that degree, there is absolutely no distinction between anti-Zionism, the rejection of the Jewish people, and Jewish people alone's right to national self-determination in our historic homeland, and saying that Jews don't have a right to be Jews anywhere in the world, because that's part of our identity as Jews, is our ties that have been going back 3,500 years to the land of Israel. So to be a Jew is to be tied to this land, and to say that you're not allowed to be tied to the land of Israel. You're not allowed to celebrate Hanukkah, a festival where we celebrate and commemorate the defeat of the Greek army that was trying to destroy Judaism 2,000 years ago, right? So you're saying you're not allowed to celebrate a Jewish festival because a Jewish festival links you to the land of Israel, but almost every single Jewish holiday links you to the land of Israel because it's the center of Jewish identity. So anti-Zionism is, in fact, anti-Judaism, anti-Jewishness, Jew hatred, anti-Semitism. It's the same thing.
Is this an ideological compulsion, a political compulsion, or ignorance? How would you read the Australian government's reaction to all of this?
I think it's a combination of all of those things, and it's also cowardice. You know, they've unleashed this genie from the bottle of Islamic extremism. It's something that the Indian government, like the Israeli government, would not do, because we understand the danger of it. You saw it in Mumbai, and you've seen it over and over again in your history of fighting the same people. By the way, the perpetrators were immigrants from Pakistan who were aligned with the same ideology that guides the same terrorist organizations that have been running rampant in India for decades. So, you know, we understand that you don't take that hatred out of the bottle, and they took it out of the bottle, and now they're too cowardly to deal with it. But aside from that, I think that, you know, there's a shared assessment that there's something very different about Jews and that they should be treated differently. Basic human rights, basic civil rights that are supposed to be the property of all Australians, of all citizens of Australia, are denied to Jews. They're not allowed to be free and safe anywhere they go. They're not protected. Even like we saw this morning in Sydney, even as they're mourning their dead, even before they managed to bury them, here is full regaled of Australian police standing there surrounding this woman who came there for the sole purpose of intimidating them and making them feel unhappy at their moments of greatest grief and sorrow.
Prime Minister Albanese has not reacted to Prime Minister Netanyahu's comments, but he said that this is the time when Australia needs to be one. So are Australian Jews not part of this need to be one? Are they going to raise this? How are you going to take this up with the Australian Prime Minister or the Australian government?
Look, right now, I understand that the Indian intelligence services were asked to support the Australian investigation. We're conducting our own investigation of what happened. At least one of our nationals was killed yesterday on the beach in Australia, and we'll just have to see how serious their investigation is versus, what we expect them to do, and we'll be holding them to account now and in the future, as we've been trying to do for the past 2 years, as they've been enabling this Jew hatred to just, take over the public discourse and the public spaces in Australia.
My final question, Caroline, the Hamas may have been wiped out or disabled, but does the doctrine and this entire thought continue to survive? This thought continues.
Well, look, what we have right now is a sort of hybrid situation in Gaza where Hamas is relegated to part of the seacoast of Gaza, and they have to be disarmed and dismantled in the framework of Trump's 20-point peace plan, which we've signed on to. But Hamas is rejecting what it already was committed to, which is to disarm and dismantle itself. So we're going to have to see how that goes. But in general, Jew hatred is unfortunately something that we've had to deal with going back to really the dawn of time. And we're used to it, but right now we're in a situation where it's really at a peak level that we haven't seen in a couple of generations. And we're seeing it in the West, and we're seeing it in the Middle East, we're seeing it amongst our people. And the most alarming thing about it is, when did it really sort of awaken this demon from a semi-remission that it had been in since the end of the Holocaust? It really awakened, and we saw this upsurge of Jew hatred and violence against Jews worldwide after October 7th. It was as if all of these people had been sitting around dormant with their hatred of Jews, and suddenly, delighted as they were at the sight of the massacre of Jews on October 7th, they decided that now was the time to pounce on the Jews of their own countries, of their own societies. And that's sort of what seems to be the explanation of what happened. So I think that the answer to that is that no, indeed, the Jews fight back. And we're not going to stand down in the face of murderous ideologies and murderous people who come to try to harm us. We're going to stand up and we're going to defend ourselves. It's precisely what Prime Minister Netanyahu said in his message yesterday, and what he's been saying really every day that since October 7th and even before that. We fight. The difference between Jews before we had a state of Israel beginning in 1948 and now is that it's not that people stopped hating us, it's that we have the means to defend ourselves against their hatred. And we do. And maybe we're hated for that because the Australians and other weak leaders in the West don't want to defend their societies or their peoples from this kind of hatred. And maybe they're angry at us because we're showing them up by doing what they should be doing as leaders of free societies. But it's well past time for them to do that. And one thing I can say at the end of my remarks is just how much we appreciate the leadership of Prime Minister Modi. I know that the Prime Minister Netanyahu, has stated repeatedly that we intend to go and visit you in India soon. And we value very, very much our extraordinary alliance with the Indian government and with the people of India.
Well, our culture practices the principles of inclusion, and everyone is welcome. But Caroline Glick, thank you for speaking with us. My deepest condolences, thoughts and prayers. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
So we heard the international relations advisor to Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of Israel. That was Caroline Glick. And she called out Australia for allowing a free run to these hate mongers and to this entire hate-driven ideology that talks about killing or wiping out Jews from the face of the earth. That's the Hamas doctrine, viewers. More importantly, she said that you are faced with a similar thought continuum or a thought process which talks about those who are not of our path need to be wiped out. Nations which dominate on a thought process, a culture, a religious belief that is beyond the realm of this radical Islamist or political Islamist ideology needs to be wiped out or done away with it. Now, Jitat Rai Bharadwaj, founder and editor-in-chief at the Australia Today, is joining us. It's quite late but here in Australia, but he's joining us. Thank you for making the time and making the effort, Jitat. Ambassador Deepak Vora is with us, and so is Dr. Anand Ranganathan. My namaste, Jai Hind, and Vande Mataram to everyone. Thank you. Now, Jitat, a few accusations made by the Israelis. One of this is that under the Australian government, these hate mongers have had a free run. And is it true that this morning at Bondi Beach, under police protection, there was a pro-Palestine, pro-Hamas lady who was actually rubbing it in on the mourning Australian Jewish community?
See, Anand, yes, there was a female there. However, she claims to be a Jew herself. And her argument, which she told her she was removed from that scene, was that why the Israeli flags are there. Just because the flags were there, that's why she has put the kafia on her in protest of these flags. Jews have right to mourn, but they cannot politicize it with the Israeli flag. That was her rationale for it. However, police was not protecting her when the people requested that she should be removed from there. She was removed. And I'm not defending Australia at the moment. I was listening to Caroline speaking, and I was thinking, how would I defend what she is saying? We have seen the same thing, reported the same thing for the last 2.5 years. We have reported that calls of gas the Jews on the streets of Sydney. We have reported firebombing of synagogues in Melbourne and Sydney. We have reported young kids of Jewish origin to be protected by guards while they were walking to their schools. So this has been happening on the pretext of freedom of speech, freedom of protest. That's what was happening here. And then this has emboldened these people to what happened yesterday night. They were pushing the boundaries, and then it came the day that they picked up the gun and shot 15 innocent people.
Now, who's the person who stepped up, that individual, the civilian, who tried to overpower the elder one of the Akrams, the father?
His name is Ahmad. He is a Syrian refugee. He came to Australia as a Syrian refugee, and he was brave enough to hold that thing and empower and snatch the gun. He saved many lives. I mean, this man was walking very close to us, where in the park where the Hanuk by the sea was happening. The event was happening. It was like 20-30 meters, and his son was another 30 meters away on the breast. So see, both are Muslim. How do you do something like that? A Muslim saving other people, putting his life into danger, and other guy who claims to be a Muslim killing people. That's what we are seeing. Emotions are very raw. People were very scared when the first half of the morning we were reporting. People were scared. They were changing their travel plans, even saying, we are scared to go to Sydney. We don't want to travel anymore for the holidays. After that, in the later half of the day, when we started talking them, the anger part started coming. And the anger part will be misplaced at most of the time. They were talking about, we don't want migrant like these people. So in the coming days, weeks, or maybe months, when you hear stories, that anger manifests into abuses, spitting, hitting. I don't know. It's anybody's guess. That will happen. But we can't just say that, oh, it's racism in Australia. These people are worried about their lives now.
Ambassador Deepak Vora, your thoughts, sir?
Thank you very much, sir. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Always a pleasure to be with you, sir, on your amazing channel, and you yourself are outstanding. Give me a minute, and I see the other Anand Saab is also there. Sir, I'm right now in a magnificent part of Bharat called Odisha. I'm in Puri. I'd just gone to the temple of the living God, Jagannath. And they gave me this Uttavyo, which I'm keeping for you, sir. You deserve it more than I do, because you're absolutely outstanding what you have done to bring the truth to people. Now, Australia, a white, racist, supremacist country. Arrant nonsense. I heard the chief of New South Wales police talking. Oh, there should be no retribution. Arrant nonsense. You are members of 5 eyes, 6 ears, 7 noses, whatever. Forgive me, that organization is called. Didn't you know this was happening? The Jewish government, the Israeli government has been warning you. You take that lightly because these are not Australians. Do you remember, sir, not too long ago, Indian students were attacked?
Yeah.
This kind of mollycoddling, winning hearts and minds, is rubbish. If there has to be retribution, let the Australians get onto the streets, catch hold of every fellow and slaughter who has this kind of mindset. And sir, may I add, I don't know too many who don't have this kind of mindset. Otherwise, sitting in Australia where you build your own life, a father and a son, how sick can you be? This is not fundamentalism. This is not jihadism. This is suicidalism. Kill yourself because you can't get whatever you want here. So they'll be waiting for you in heaven. Look at the character's face. Looks like an absolute maladjusted scoundrel. Therefore, my opinion, sir, I'm sorry if I'm hurting anybody's sentiments. Australia has to give up this nonsense of being liberal. What liberal? This is liberalism, where you allow this guy with 6 guns or 7 grenades or whatever to come and blast people who are celebrating a holiday. And you think it's good. And so finally, let me complete, sir. 30 seconds. When I was today praying at the temple of Lord Jagannath, the head Granthi, he knew about what had happened. And he looked at me and he said, Saab, you are a Sanatani. I said, yes, I'm a Sanatani. He said, when we went into Bangladesh, the Indian army, he was talking of 70, he's an elderly guy in his 70s. He said, how many mosques did we destroy? Not one. When we abolished 370 in Kashmir, how many mosques did we destroy? Not one. And these guys, no, sir, I'm sorry. This kind of an approach, the Aussie government should wake up. And if they haven't, they have sold their souls. No, I'm sorry to be harsh, sir.
No, but here is the thing, your plain speak is welcome, but the fact is that not everybody subscribes to the kind of methods that these people used, but there are a large number who are influenced and deeply influenced because they get a free run or an open run. Now, here's the thing, Ambassador Saab. In Australia, we've seen the same with the K narrative. We've seen the same with the kind of, whenever it's a vote bank, whenever it's a cluster which they believe is important for their political furtherance, they look the other way. Now, is that not true? Why should,
absolutely.
But even in a liberal society, a nation that perhaps holds free speech, highest of the free speech standards, they will draw the line between free speech and hate speech. They will draw the line between criticism and vitriol.
Sir, I'm 74 years young. I'm 52 years in diplomacy. It doesn't work like this. I don't know if you've heard of a character who sits in Washington, Donald Trump. What did he say when these 2 soldiers were shot by the sidekicks of his sweetheart, darling, handsome Syrian prince? He said, our retribution will be swift and severe. At least he said that. Have I heard anything from the Aussies? Have I heard anything from Muslim organizations saying, stop this nonsense? No. Ye to Allah ke liye hai. Arrant rubbish. I think now, countries like India, which we are doing with the Jewish lady who was there was telling you, sir, we have to wield the broom. And we are doing it. You know how quickly we solved the Fort blast? We have the experience, we have the expertise. The Aussies can ask us if they can get over a white Australia obsession. We'll teach them how to deal with these guys. The only way, sir, I'm sorry, Mr. Narasimhan, forgive me. The only way, sir, is to eliminate them. There's no other way, sir. It's too late to win hearts and minds.
No, the point is, and Dr. Ranganathan, thank you for your patience. Now, here's the issue. There is a thought continuum. people who perpetrated this thought, they may be exterminated, they may die, they may expire, but this is through generations. It's nearly a millennia now that this continuum this remains, and it's wiped out civilizations, it's wiped out other religions, and it's wiped out, and it continues that process of wiping out, and it adapts. It adapts based on the era and based on the times, and it also embraces technology faster than those who want to counter such a thought process or a ideology want to do so, and that's very evident. Dr. Ranganathan.
Good evening, Anand, and good evening to my fellow panelists. Look, I heard the Israeli lady say very wise words, but the fact is, it's not just Hamas that hates Jews and wants them eliminated, wants Israel eliminated. Hamas is basing its hatred on something else that is almost 1,000 years old, and that has never been condemned. I know that by the time I end, I will be accused of 4 crimes: misinterpretation, miscontextualizing, whataboutery, and non-believer ignorance. But what has to be said has to be said. There are 2 things we need to understand. One, that there are 2 billion Muslims in the world, and of course it would be totally wrong and irrational to suggest that all of them display the same characteristics. Of course they don't. You have a Muslim Naveed Akram who took lives, and a Muslim Ahmad Al-Ahmad who saved lives. One is a villain and the other a hero. But the truth is, both of them follow one book that preaches peace as well as orders violence and retribution, and none of them condemn whatever is written in that book. So you have a terrorist reading that book as well as someone who kills a terrorist reading that same book. This does not mean that 2 different kinds of people do not exist. All this means is that one book exists that both of them read. A practicing Muslim who believes in the Sharia and every single word that there is in the book is a good Muslim, while a Muslim who drinks, fornicates, indulges in idle talk or music, supports Muslim women who reject the burqa, draws a portrait of whoever he wishes to, marries a non-Muslim, is homosexual, gives equal share of inheritance to females, and is fine with all of this, all the fellow Muslims being all of the above, is a bad Muslim. Allah has defined this. Who is a good Muslim? 33, 36, 3, 132, 8, 2, 49, 50, not I, but Allah. And every single time the apologists cringe at violence or retribution being ordered, they bring out the excuse of context or interpretation in order to hide the true meaning. In fact, it is the Muslims, I put it to you, who are Islamophobic. That is the fear Islam. They fear to bring out the orders and the commandments of their holy book in its entirety on Jews, Christians, polytheists, homosexuality, apostasy, heresy, dress code, wife beating, blasphemy, because they fear being called illiberal and hypocrites. So they end up condemning and branding as radicals the Muslims who are faithfully following the fundamentals. In a sense, they snare the fundamentalists but spare the fundamentals. Look, Anand, the disbelievers of that time, polytheists, Christians, Jews, homosexuals, apostates, were seen to possess certain characteristics. And it is these characteristics that are condemned and ordered to be punished in the Holy Book. The orders are not for non-believers of that time. They are for anyone who possesses their characteristics for all time. It is specious, is it not, to claim orders that apply to non-believers are meant for non-believers of that time, but orders that apply to believers are meant for believers of today's time. Very briefly too. 30 seconds. Terrorism has a religion. Because when Pahalgam terrorists demand recitation of Islamic kalma, check the ID cards of tourists, pull down trousers to confirm and condemn only kafirs, terrorism has a religion. When Kashmiri Hindus are butchered, driven out, terrorism has a religion. When in Nadimar, 23 unsuspecting Kashmiri Hindus are lined up and shot point blank, terrorism has a religion. When 2611 Taj Hotel guests are spared if they recited the Kalma, terrorism has a religion. When slogans raised from mosque, Ralif, Salif, Galif, dead to Kafirs are made to drive away only Hindus, terrorism has a religion. When millions attend funerals of terrorists, when ISIS flags are unfurled in Jamia Masjid, when only Jews are targeted at a beach in Sydney, terrorism has a religion. Unless we accept these 2 axioms, I'm afraid nothing is going to change.
Yeah. We are not just accept these 2 axioms, but the other thing is that the strategy that's being adopted, one is that there is an existence. The other one is to understand the methodology and to unravel it and to counter it at the ground level. Most importantly, in all these cases, one sees that they become a political, they come to a particular number where they wield a political heft. And we've seen this in Bharat also. wherever the consolidation happens at critical choke points of various cities, which first up are the outskirts, then they become the jugular vein, and after that they end up having a certain level of political heft, and with that political heft they start orchestrating, dictating policy and forcing the local politicians to look the other way. Now this is a standard operating mechanism, and they will not be accommodated in any of the OIC member nations. They will be pushed and dispersed out to nations whose cultures need to be altered, whose demography needs to be changed. Now this is a pattern, and this is not what I am saying. This is a template which is there for everybody to see, and I am not saying this is, but this is a template that's been practiced for not decades, not centuries, like I said, close to a millennia. Now, Jitat Rai Bharadwaj, is this going to change? My final question, is the Australian government going to change its approach? Or have they just gone and lit another lamp at Hanukkah festival and said, okay, we express solidarity, but you're ready to be, but we'll still give protection to somebody else? What's the approach of the Australian government?
I don't see much changing except for little bit here, there. They'll be giving another round of funding for anti-Semitism, countering measures. They'll be giving some leadership roles to community leaders. That's the cosmetic which they do. There is a lot of political will required to do what probably ANAND is asking to do, which is, I don't see that happening. The system is such in Australia that they have created this liberal democracy which will treat everyone equal. If you have heard the New South Wales Police Commissioner, he was hesitant and he was a bit angry that the name of the attacker was released as soon as last night, and he said that everyone's safety is our concern, not only people who have died, not only people who are being targeted, but everyone's safety is our target. So that can tell you a lot more than what you're asking me. I don't see anything changing. We have to kind of put pressure on governments to make them change little bit by little bit, but I don't see a bigger change happening just because of this.
No, it's a sad statement. It's such a big travesty. We've run out of time. But the fact is, okay, they can't do it with the Edge gang. Let them start with the K-goons first up. That's a smaller lot. And if they can try and act positively against the K-goons, they can at least understand a template how this entire larger H gang can be attacked or perhaps neutralized, when I say in terms of their activities and their intentions perhaps neutered, if I may say. Thank you, Ambassador Deepak Vora and Jitat Rai Bharadwaj. Thank you very much. Dr. Ranganathan, to stay on. We will once again shift focus here. A name that's yet again at the heart of a fresh political controversy over Bharat's most significant anti-poverty programs. The centre has tabled a bill to rename the Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Act as the Viksit Bharat Guarantee for Rozgar and Ajivika Mission, while also revising the centre state funding ratio to 60-40. The proposal has sparked sharp opposition, with the Congress calling it a cynical revisionism, accusing the government of focusing on rebranding to erase Mahatma Gandhi's legacy rather than fixing delivery gaps. Priyanka Gandhi Vadra, in fact, has questioned the intent behind the name change, calling it a diversionary tactic. The Trinamool Congress has also opposed the move, warning that it sets a dangerous precedent. The BJP, however, has defended the renaming as part of reforms aligned with the Viksit Bharat 2047 vision. The government says the changes go beyond symbolism, pointing to accompanying tweaks such as increasing guaranteed work days to strengthen rural employment and social security. So what is the nub of this entire political fight? Is it a crucial reform to tweak the policy, or is it a politically motivated rebrand? Radhika Khera, spokesperson of the BJP, should be joining us any moment now. Dr. Anand Ranganathan stays on with us, and Ashwini Mishra, leader of the Congress party, with us. Namaste, Jai Hind and Vande Mataram. Ashwini Mishra ji, your point of view on this?
I don't understand why BJP is trying to change a name. BJP opposed Manrega when it was born. use it when it was convenient, and now they want to rename it for the credits. Essentially, they want to erase everything from the history because they don't have their own history. Their history belongs to Mafi beats. Their history belongs to the people who were supporting Britishers. So they want to create some names from the history. I don't understand what's the need of it, because it's a Rural Employment Guarantee Act which ensures that the people in the rural area get a minimum guarantees for the employment. If they really has to rename, and the kind of reason they are giving, that they are telling that we don't want to have scheme in the name of people, whereas they themselves has so many schemes. They have Atal Pension Yojana, which is on the Atal Bihari name. They have Deen Dayal Upadhyay Yojana. They have Pandit Deen Dayal Upadhyay Gramin Kushal Yojana. So many schemes are there on the BJP political leader names. So I don't understand why they want to rename a scheme which is on the Mahatma Gandhi's name. For them, I believe probably the Bapu means Asharam Bapu and not the Mahatma Gandhi. Otherwise, they will not never dare to change a scheme which is on Mahatma Gandhi's name.
Well, they've not renamed it Bapu either. Radhika Khera, how would you want to respond? Namaste. Radhika Khera, can you hear me? Namaste. This is Anand here. Well, we'll try and see if she's through or not in a bit. Dr. Ranganathan, you looked up sharply and reacted to Mishra ji saying they've got an allergy to Mahatma Gandhi. Yeah, go ahead, please.
No, I mean, Mishra ji has a flair for rhetoric, and I understand that he belongs to a party, so he has to vociferously bring out his point of view. He has a point, and to a lot of it, I agree. But he did not have to end with that absolutely unnecessary flourish of bringing in Asaram Bapu, convicted rapist, and, make comparisons. Ashwini, that was not required. Be that as it may, I know you have your compulsions. But Ashwini is right to one extent. Let me first agree with what he says, that I don't find it was right to rename a scheme that personally I find should not exist. And I say that as a well-wisher for a welfareism that I support, for changing the landscape of the Indian agricultural system that I support, because unless we do that, unless we change the current scenario, which is disastrous and catastrophic, where 44% of our Indian labor force, that is equivalent to about 300 million, is involved in agriculture, a sector that contributes only 14 to 14.5% of our GDP. Everything from purchase to produce is completely medieval and archaic. Unless we change that, I am afraid we are not going to achieve the goal of Viksit Bharat. Be that as it may, are there any schemes currently run by the central government, by Modi and RSS, as Ashwini puts it, that are named after Mahatma Gandhi? If there are, then the entire house of cards of Ashwini falls, and I can think of Swachh Bharat. At least the logo is based on Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi's spectacles, is it not? There might be many other schemes that are based on it. In this case, I think Radhika will give the particulars, but changing the name is like rearranging deck chairs on this particular Titanic, because it was the same Narendra Modi who derided Manrega, saying कि गड्ढे खोदने के लिए तुम लोग पैसे दे रहे हो, गड्ढे खोदने के लिए. And then it is the same Narendra Modi who has increased the budget of Manrega. That the BJP has to explain. Either it likes Manrega or it dislikes Manrega. Which one is it?
Well, it's no longer Manrega. It's VBG Ramji now. Radhika Khera, please. Can you hear me now?
Yes. Jai Shri Ram. Good evening to all. Anand, I don't believe that Mahatma Gandhi ji needs a scheme to be remembered and to be named, after him to be remembered. What matters is basically he does not need a government or anyone for that matter for his name to survive. Ki there should be a scheme-based name on him. What he actually needs is that his legacy should survive in outcomes, which the government is doing. Like Anand ji said, Swachh Bharat Abhiyan, his Chashma is there as the logo, and that is what we take forward the teachings of Mahatma Gandhi ji. Now those same people over here sitting and giving gyan and saying, comparing the BJP's changing the name from Mahatma Gandhi to whatever he had said. Well, are they as a party who claim that hum Mahatma Gandhi ki party hai, which they are not. Let me say it very categorically. They are Congress आई जो इंदिरा गांधी की कांग्रेस है. राहुल गांधी claims that वो महात्मा गांधी का टीचिंग से सीते हैं. Did Mahatma Gandhi teach them to say, Modi teri kabr khudegi, aaj nahi to kal khudegi? Did Mahatma Gandhi teach them to say that, say all sorts of nasty things for Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi ji and his family, his mother and his father? Is that what they have learned from Gandhi ji? By just giving names to any scheme does not mean that you are living Gandhi, does not mean that you are breathing Gandhi, does not mean that you are taking his things forward. You have to live Gandhi in your everyday life. By saying मोहब्बत की दुकान चलाते हैं ज़मीन पर जहर फैलाते हैं, that's not the way you take Gandhi forward. And so what if the name has been changed?
How is this going to impact by changing the name? Are you scared of Congress taking the credit of Manrega?
How is it going to impact? How?
Initially you hated it. Now as you are
Anand,
using it,
Manrega has been, Manrega started, Manrega was introduced. I agree that Manrega was introduced with good intent, but what did it reach to? It is riddled with continuous leakages, delayed payments, fake jobs. That was happening in the Congress government. That's how you were treating Manrega, which was named after Mahatma Gandhi ji, which you got. That is how you were treating Manrega. We are the ones who are ensuring Manrega is followed on ground, and we have increased the money that people get in Manrega.
Why are you changing
क्यों
the
नहीं
name?
बदले भाई हमारी मर्जी देश की Mr. Ashwini, don't overspeak over me. Please don't speak over me. Please don't speak over me. The country,
To both Ashwini ji and
the
Radhika
people
Khera.
of the country have given us this mandate that we can keep whatever name that we want. Pradhan Mantri Shri Narendra Modi ji is an elected Prime Minister for a third term. You have been proposed
let's
and
not speak
rejected
over
by
each other.
by the people of India time and again.
Ashwini Mishra ji, Ashwini ji.
You have been rejected by the Indians time and again.
Okay, no, 1 minute. That doesn't
The country has given us the authority and the power to change whatever we want.
No, you can change. If there is a rationale to why this change has been effected, please share the rationale. If it is purely on the fact that, listen, I've got the mandate, I'm empowered and I want to change, so I will change, so then please state that too. The question that the Congress leader is asking is, why only Manrega and why change? This is the question. Yes, you've given it a great name. It's Viksit Bharat. We're calling it VBG Ramji. It's easy to remember like that. But why? That's the question.
The problem with the Congress is that they want to reduce all this to just symbolism. They don't care. They never cared about Manrega. We are the ones who increased the days from 100 to 125. We are the ones who increased the wages. We are the ones who are ensuring that Manrega lagu hoti hai. Like I said, during the Congress tenure, it was riddled with fake cards, the money was not reaching people. Nothing, the Manrega was not being, ज़मीन पे धरातल पे कुछ भी नहीं था आनंद. That is the sad and harsh reality of Manrega, which was started by the Congress party.
Please take the credit for implementing Manrega in the true spirit.
What is wrong in changing the
name? There
is
nothing wrong.
Where does in our constitution that Rahul Gandhi?
Nobody's saying that there is anything wrong in changing the name. The question that's being asked is, why change the name? That whatever the Congress is saying is different.
Because Gandhiji deserves outcomes, not theatrics. Gandhiji deserves outcomes and not theatrics. When you are taking his name, you have to ensure that there is delivery.
Anyway, no. The other thing, Ashwini ji, for all the umbrage that the Congress is taking, the Congress itself refers to it as with the moniker of Manrega. Now, in the Manrega, where is the Mahatma Gandhi? How many people know? It's a reference. It's been brought down and shortened to an acronym. The other thing is, sir, is there a deliberate attempt to co-opt the legacy of Mahatma Gandhi, aligning it with the Gandhi family, and trying to say, oh, we are doing it all for Mahatma Gandhi? So, who is trying to do the co-option and who is trying to do the appropriation? That's the question.
Anand, I'll tell you, the only problem is that Manrega got brought up by Congress and it is very effective. My father was Gram Panchayat Pradhan and I have seen it on the ground. Radhika might say that it was not effectively working. All those things are possible. If that was the case, they would have not continued it. They continued it and Congress is still getting the credit for that continuation. That's the reason they want to change. They want to remove the memories from the people's mind that it was created by Congress party, and they will eventually do that for all historical people. They have
So that is also something which Ashwini ji, for a large part of Bharat's independent itihas, the BJP and its previous avatars were sitting in opposition, and they will learn from those who sat in power. They will learn from their playbook, because for the first 15-20 years, all that the Nehruvian leadership tried to do, and thereafter the Parsi Gandhi family, which changed the surname and name to GANDHI, what they tried to do was erase everybody else and their contribution towards Bharat's independence and legacy, and appropriate it only to this family. Now that's the playbook that everybody is seeing. All the names were appropriated, all the things were changed in that way. So that's something which every political party, and especially the Congress party, has become past masters in doing it. So much so the Congress party rebranded itself as Congress I, and then they now conveniently dropped the I, and they've again become Indian National Congress. So much so that GHANDY became GANDI, CHANDY became GANDHI. So the appropriation and past masters at appropriation to try and turn around and say, why are you appropriating? He's like three fingers pointing at you when you're pointing one index finger at somebody else.
Anand, can I come in for 20 seconds?
Dr. Ranganathan, and then Ashwini ji, I'll come back to you, please.
Look, 2 points, and I think here, I think Radhika ji, my good friend, has more explaining to do than Ashwini ji, because of course she is representing the government out here that has changed the name. Now, either you have one rule that follows, across governments, or you can't change the rule and expect people will not come after you. For example, you remove all the names of previous and past or present leaders from all the schemes. So you remove Atal from a scheme, you remove Deen Dayal Upadhyay from a scheme, then you remove Mahatma Gandhi from a scheme. Nobody would mind it. But you've kept them and you remove this, especially because this was not your scheme to start with. So of course questions will be asked. Secondly, it is again a little bit specious for you to say, because we have tweaked Manrega so much that it's not Mahatma Gandhi. Well, the point is, till the UPA time, for those 8 or 10 years, during the time of the UPA when the scheme was still there, a lot of changes were made to the clauses of Manrega. But the name still existed, Manrega. So out here, it doesn't mean that you've changed the structure of Manrega. That gives you the license to change the name. I think this is
frankly, Dr. Ranganathan, frankly, Dr. Ranganathan, the BJP or the government of the day does not need any license. It's got a free and open mandate to change the name. So they can change the name. The other thing is, sir, that unfortunately, most of the schemes were named after Gandhi, Nehru or Indira. So now if there is a balance and if there is a semblance of presence of some of the other leaders and contributors, then it is only fair that there should be more. Let there be one scheme named after every person who has contributed towards Bharat's Swatantrata, or those who have been tall leaders of Bharat. So let there be one.
Just 10 seconds, because I think the BJP had developed a nice idea to go around this. For example, there were a lot of health insurance schemes named after Indira Gandhi and Nehru and Gandhi dynasty. They brought in a new scheme, Ayushman Bharat, which is a great scheme. So rather than, rebranding the Indira Gandhi scheme or some other scheme, they brought in a new scheme. They could have brought in a new scheme.
This act itself is a new act. That's why they're repealing the old one and replacing it with a new one. It's not just a title change. See, there is a fresh bill. The old act is going to be repealed, and the new act is going to come on place. So they are bringing in a new act. It's not that they are not coming and saying, sorry, I don't like the name, so I'm just changing the name. They are bringing in a new act, and the new act, more than the symbolism, I think the pain point is going to be for those states which are already near bankruptcy, who now have to cough up 40% of this Manrega amount. They also have to now chip in. When they are disbursing these funds, they can't just look at the state and say only the center and the center will pay and the state will continue to benefit out of the funds generated from the center. So the state will also have to contribute, and I think that is a larger pain point which is hiding behind this entire semantics of Mahatma Gandhi and Viksit Bharat. Yes, Radhika Khera. Then Ashwini ji, I'll come to you.
The problem for them is not that we are changing the name. Their problem is कि नाम क्या है, क्योंकि नाम में आए हैं राम. Sari problem, Anand, is because they have an allergy and their hatred towards Prabhu Shri Ram. क्या महात्मा गांधी जब कांग्रेस के अध्यक्ष थे, and when Mahatma Gandhi was alive, did he not start every day of his life with with bhajans of Prabhu Shri Ram? He did. So आज अगर उनकी स्कीम को, which has been renamed and has come up with changes, and we've changed it completely, if we are naming it to Viksit Bharat, which I am sure Mahatma Gandhi wanted, and साथ में अगर जी राम जी लिख दिया, which is again on the principles of Mahatma Gandhi ji, who wanted Ram Rajya. So what is the harm?
No, it's a fantastic argument, but I'll call it out right away, Radhika ji, with due respect, is the fact that Ram is not in the name. Ram is the acronym. In the older act, Mahatma Gandhi was in the name, but never in the acronym.
Congress has a problem.
No, there is a difference there. There is a difference there. You know, the simplest argument is that when you say it is VBG Ramji, no. When you use the acronym, you think of Maryada Purushottam. When you use the full act, you talk of a Viksit Bharat. That's perhaps a better argument than the one that was just made. On that note, I have to run out of time. Thank you to everybody. Thank you. Namaste.
This is News 18 Network. India's largest news network.
10-year-old girl to older adults, including a British-born rabbi and other community figures. One of the suspected attackers was killed by the cops at the scene, while the second suspect was critically wounded and taken into custody. Authorities quickly declared the massacre a terrorist attack, saying the shooters deliberately targeted the Jewish community during a religious celebration, an act widely described as anti-Semitic terrorism. Cops later found suspected improvised explosive devices in a vehicle linked to the attackers, which fortunately did not detonate. Australia Prime Minister Anthony Albanese condemned the attack in the strongest terms, calling it a deliberate act of hate and terror aimed at Jewish Australians. He vowed that Australia would not tolerate violence or hatred and will tackle the rising threat of anti-Semitism and domestic terror. Albanese also called for national unity in support of the Jewish community and pledged to work to eradicate the hate that fueled the attack. World leaders offered condolences and solidarity with Australia and the victims. US President Donald Trump condemned the attack as a terrible anti-Semitic act and pledged cooperation in the ongoing investigations with the US agencies offering assistance. Prime Minister Narendra Modi also expressed his support for Australia and sympathy for the families affected, denouncing the attack as a ghastly act of terror and reaffirming Bharat's zero tolerance for terrorism in all forms. However, Israel Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu sharply criticized Anthony Albanese, accusing him of failing to confront anti-Semitism in Australia and asserting in a letter that Canberra's policies, including its recent recognition of a Palestinian state, had poured fuel on the anti-Semitic fire and contributed to a climate that enabled such violence. The Bondi Beach massacre, the deadliest mass shooting in Australia since the 1996 Port Arthur massacre and the worst terror incident in the nation's history, has prompted urgent discussions about the vulnerability of the Jewish community. It has become a part of a pattern of attacks on the Jewish community in the West, where the Hamas mindset persists. Now, earlier in the day, here on the right stand, we also spoke with Caroline Glick, who's the International Affairs Advisor to the Prime Minister of Israel. This is what she had to say. Joining us now is Caroline Glick, International Affairs Advisor to the Prime Minister of Israel. Caroline, namaste. Thank you for speaking with us here at CNN News 18. If you can hear me, may I ask and understand, why was Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu so critical of the Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese?
Well, namaste to you and your viewers as well. The reason that the Prime Minister is so critical of the Australian Prime Minister Albanese is because Prime Minister Albanese in Australia has not only stood by, he's enabled violent assaults against Jews for the past 2 years since October 7th. You know, on October 9th, you had a crowd of people standing by the Sydney Opera Building screaming Jews to the gas, 2 days after the worst massacre of Jews since the Holocaust. And the crowd wasn't dispersed by Australian authorities. The crowd openly calling for the genocide of Jews in Australia and everywhere else and threatening and taunting Australian Jews. Instead, the Australian authorities told the Jews to stay home, to disperse, to walk away, and allowed this mob to seed and to have its message of genocide be legitimized in Australia. And since then, we have seen just attack after attack after attack, and each time, you know, they're warned, we tell them, we warn them, and they don't do anything. Instead, you know, the Australian government responded to October 7th, you know how? By giving $25 million to Gaza, by giving $25 million to Hamas. This is what the Albanese government has been doing since the very beginning of the war, and accusing us of genocide even before we even began operating on the ground practically. So, you know, we're talking about an administration in Canberra that has been enabling, facilitating the terrorization of Jews in Australia at the same time that it's condemning Israel as some sort of an outlaw nation for actually standing up to the terrorism that, as we warned would happen, caused the massacre yesterday on Bondi Beach in Sydney. That's why he's critical, because Australian Prime Minister Albanese was warned repeatedly. We warned him. The Jews of Australia warned him, and he didn't listen. Instead, he continued to empower the Palestinians, yes, by recognizing a state of Palestine. You know what? This woman came to Bondi Beach today, in the aftermath of the massacres, when you have the Jewish community milling about mourning what had just befell it, and she came surrounded by police guards, armed in a keffiyeh and Free Palestine garb, in order to taunt the Jews. And she was protected. She came in there with full police protection. So it wasn't her message. It was the message of the Sydney police authorities that said Jews aren't even allowed to mourn in quiet and tranquility. We're not going to allow that to happen. We're going to allow this woman to come in and poke her finger in their eyes just hours before they've even started burying the dead, and when you still have dozens of people fighting for their lives in area hospitals. So yes, there's a reason to accuse Albanese of being responsible for this. He's presided over all of this.
A lot of governments say that this is their way of protecting free speech. Your thoughts on that, Caroline?
You know, there's a difference between freedom of speech and freedom to incite violence and murder, and freedom to intimidate and assault innocent people who are worshiping. Is it freedom of speech to ignite a synagogue while you have Jews celebrating the Jewish Sabbath and eating a Sabbath dinner at a synagogue in Melbourne? Is it freedom of speech to taunt Jews everywhere they go outside of their schools, to vandalize Jewish property? Is that freedom of speech, calling for death to the Jews in Australia? Because if it is, then I don't know what the value of freedom of speech is, because all this does is terrorize an entire population and empower people who then go out and massacre Jews on a beach in Sydney, celebrating their religious festival.
How would you read this attempt to link it with what Israel's action is with respect to Gaza?
You know, in a way it's true, because the hatred is a unified hatred. It's a hatred of Jews, and it's a hatred of the Jewish state. And what they try to do is vilify the Jewish state in order to enable the murder of Jews outside of Israel in places as far-flung as Sydney, Australia. You know, and so if you're saying that Israel has no right to exist, then, you know, what you're basically saying is that, yes, it's okay to stand outside the Sydney Opera House on October 9th and scream death to the Jews, Jews to the gas. That's exactly what's happening. So to that degree, there is absolutely no distinction between anti-Zionism, the rejection of the Jewish people, and Jewish people alone's right to national self-determination in our historic homeland, and saying that Jews don't have a right to be Jews anywhere in the world, because that's part of our identity as Jews, is our ties that have been going back 3,500 years to the land of Israel. That so to be a Jew is to be tied to this land, and to say that you're not allowed to be tied to the land of Israel. You're not allowed to celebrate Hanukkah, a festival where we celebrate